The Paratus Intervention, Chapter 10. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed. The center will not hold. They could hear it, but they didn't know what they were hearing. The helicopter sat empty and still. Larry inhaled, to call for Anne, when she jumped Vance from behind and bit his ear off. Vance struck her reflexively hard. She staggered back, several feet, but managed not to fall. Anne, chewing on Vance's ear, looked up at the men, shrieked, and ran towards them. Vance, clutching the side of his face, glanced to Larry, who was already stepping between them, into the path of the woman's charge, calling her name. Anne! 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 There was no recognition in her eyes. Larry lowered himself, just as she came upon him, hooked his arm between her legs, and stood, hoisting her into the air, allowing her own momentum to fling her from his arm. All the while he continued to call her name. They both did. She never answered it. Hitting the ground, rolling, then scrambling back to her feet, in one fast, even if clumsy motion, Anne hurled herself at them once again. Wordlessly, the two men came at her from either side, and grappling her between them. "Now what?" Larry said again. "The hell is wrong with her?" Vance asked. "She is in on it, or someone got to her? The hell is happening, Larry?" Larry said nothing. He just hugged Anne all the harder. Even in this, the awfulest of embraces, he still did not think of the woman as attacking them. Or him her. Something was wrong. She was sick. She was confused. She was something. He loved her. And something was wrong with her. He wanted to help. He was helping, right? He helped people, right? That was what he was all about, right? He didn't know anymore. Maybe he never did. He definitely didn't know what was happening now. Clearly, he had missed something. Was this all his fault? Then it occurred to both of them at the same time for completely different reasons. Marco was a cannibal. Anne had become one. Darren had become one too. Marco was resistant to intervention. He was an infamous case in their circles because of the particular vileness of the vice. In the world of intervention, he was the extreme case, even among the extreme outliers. Intervention technology had been used to identify and catalog Marco's aberrant behavior. Many times it had been studied, yet someone took it another step. Someone had duplicated Marco's intervention-resistant cannibalism. Maybe Darren helped. Maybe he just found them out. In either case, those same people used intervention on him to restructure his thoughts to match Marco's. While Larry was down in the building, they somehow must have done it to Anne as well. This was a problem behavior that Larry couldn't fix. He had tried and failed, many, many times. He couldn't help her now, no more than he could have helped Marco before. Vance, on the other hand, experienced his realization firsthand. It was no epiphany. It was intervention. Microscopic receivers had entered into his bloodstream when Marco bit his arm, and enough of them made their way close enough that when exiting the shielded building beneath their feet, the transmitters could receive and retransmit the course of intervention that was being broadcast all over the entire world. Mathematical inversions of specific thoughts, 1,001 synthetic counter-thoughts intervened upon that infinitesimal metaphysical space between Vance's brain and mind, counterwave after counterwave, erasing all inclination towards decency, restraint, and everything he generally regarded as his humanity. Moreover, downloading into their place were rigorously modified copies of Marco's own intervention-resistant thought patterns, directly into Vance's own mind, like a thought virus. Larry saw Vance loosen his grip on Anne, even as she thrashed. But with Larry still holding her, Vance easily sank his own teeth into her neck and pulled away, chomping a large chunk of her throat as her lifeblood hosed his friend down. Larry stumbled backwards. Anne's lifeless body fell to the ground. Vance hurled himself upon it and feasted. Even as he gained his footing, Larry continued to back away, reviling in horror. If not for the railing, he would have walked himself right off the top of the high-rise building. Turning, he grasped the rail to anchor himself. But looking down, all the sounds that had been background noise suddenly flooded into his full awareness. Screams, alarms, gunfire. The streets were filled with what can only be described as pandemonium. Time passed. Larry looked over his shoulder. Vance lay gorged and blood-drenched next to Ann's half-eaten corpse. Vance looked at Larry and just smiled. A familiar smile, yet it wasn't Vance's own smile. Somehow it was Marco's. With no more hesitation, Larry grabbed Ann's abandoned rifle from inside the helicopter, took aim at what used to be Vance, and started shooting as he walked back towards him. Shoulder, miss, miss, chest, chest, miss, face, chest, chest, chest. Neither body moved. Larry slung the rifle, went back to the helo, climbed aboard, half-assed a pre-flight, and checked the comms. There was an emergency broadcast, but as far as he could tell, he was going to be the only bird in the air at this point. And flew away. Epilogue. So that's it. That's the story of how this is my fault. Not all of it, but this madness that ended human civilization and brought our species to the brink, I had a hand in it. I take responsibility. Intentions be damned, right along with everything else. I made a mistake. The worst goddamn mistake any man has ever made. I own it. No one was good enough, but I thought I should try to be. Yet if I hadn't made my life's work out of something that I knew in my gut, in my soul, was wrong, just because I was good at it and thought I could be good enough, then no one could have twisted my work for their own dark purpose. I knew it was possible. We all did. We pressed on anyway. I led the charge. There it is. Now you know. So know that there is nothing I won't do to try to ensure the survival of the human race. You won't always be able to trust me to do what you want. I've already fucked up so bad that I'm beyond worrying about letting you or anyone else down. At the same time, you can trust that I am, at all times, doing anything and everything I can do to ensure a future for humanity, including when I don't do what you want and when you think I've let you down. It will always be for the cause. I've got no more ego in this. None of us should. None of us have a future worth a damn to look forward to. But future generations might. My own actions are irredeemable, at least in my own lifetime. I owe a debt that I can't ever repay. Yet if I can keep humanity alive, well, maybe that's something. This has been the Paratus intervention. It was read for you by the author, Jeremiah D. McRoberts. Swords of Faith Book 1 is a traditional fantasy adventure that follows the early adult life of Bingalin as he emerges from the ashes of a broken destiny and is thrust into an uncertain future. In many ways, Bingalin wants to restore, reclaim, or revenge aspects of his old life, but he is presented with a place and people living under the threat of an ancient evil who are in desperate need of a hero. He will face difficult choices and be called upon to perform deeds that cause even the gods themselves to shudder. He will know pain. He will be cast down. The question before him is not whether to rise, but how. The narrative explores the burdens of a driven man, the adversity we all face in life, the personal faith which can inspire us to rise above, and the people that help and hinder us along the way. It is a story of synthesis, learning to incorporate what was, is, and could be into something that is useful and meaningful on its own. Escape to the Starscape. The Starscape Chronicles are a new science fiction franchise. Currently, 6 books build the Starscape universe from different angles, each one touching on a different feature of the critical juncture in the timeline, the Discord. Together, they establish a galaxy of adventures that is ongoing and will run for decades to come. For 3.5 centuries, the Paladai and the Senate collaborated to maintain a fragile peace across the 404 habitable worlds of the Interstellar Network Alliance Commonwealth. Before the Discord, before the Civil War, before the Legion, before the Imperator. What fate awaits the Starscape? I personally invite you to crack open a book and check it out for yourself. There are also Starscape Chronicles shorts, which can be found on Rumble and YouTube. Thanks again for listening to the Paratus Intervention. It was written in 2018, published in 2020, and is owned exclusively under copyright by the author. Published also by him. This includes the print, ebook, and audio versions. Thank you.